Okay, so it's time to write our application now. But before I even start writing the application, I want to let you know about something. When I write the code, when I name variables, when I name classes, all of these are my ideas. You can solve the same problem in a different way. You can name the variables differently. You can name the classes differently. You can do this entirely differently. It's just that I am writing the application my way using the best practices. Now, the reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I'm showing my way is so you can look at my way, learn the patterns, and then start doing it your way. You can also do it my way. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm just using the best practices so you can deviate from it and still use the same practices, just use a different style. But the end result is that you're going to solve the same problem. So once again, I just wanted to stress that out because I've been getting messages from people saying, well, how come you solve it this way and not that way? Well, the reason is because you can solve it many, many ways, and all those ways can be efficient, and they can all be the best ways to solve the same problem. But I'm one person, so I have my solution, and I can also solve it another way. But it just made sense for the video to only have one solution as opposed to giving you multiple solutions, because the video would be pretty much infinite because you can have so many solutions in so many ways and you can name everything so differently, right? So you get the point as to why I made only one solution, and all the names and everything else, those are my ideas that I came up with, and hopefully you get those ideas and then you use them to generate your own. So that's kind of like the overall thing. So moving forward, if you take any other lectures or any other courses, you know that that's the gist of it, that I'm not trying to force this on you. I'm just giving you the way so that you can look at it and deviate from it and kind of create your own style. So with that said, the first thing we're going to create is a class that's going to help us read the Sudoku file. Now let me show you what they look like. So right here I have 4 files. It's basically in the bean debug folder, and I have easy, evil, hard, medium. It's just different levels of Sudokus. If you open up, this is the format for the easy one. The rest of them look the same, just numbers are in different configuration. So what we need to do is we need to read this and put it in a form that we can basically, in a structured form that we can then manipulate and do stuff with. So we're going to put this in a 2-dimensional array. So let's see how we're going to do this. So open this back up, and I will go to Solution Explorer. I will create a folder, name that workers. Then within that, I will create a file. I'm going to create a class. I'm going to name it SudokuFileReader. And that's it. And within that, I'm going to have a method called int, that's the 2-dimensional array, read file. It's going to say string, file name. That's basically the file name we're going to pass in to be able to read the file. Contents. I'm going to initialize the 2D array. So Sudoku board, I'm going to name it, equals int, new int, 9 by 9, because that's the board. It's a 9 by 9 board. And then I'm going to wrap this all within a try catch so that if anything happens with the file reading process, I can handle the exceptions. I'm going to say exception EX, and then I'm going to say throw new exception, and I'm going to say something went wrong while reading the file. EX message, and then I'm going to at the end return the Sudoku board. If everything went fine and I was able to read it, then I'm going to return that. Otherwise, I'm going to throw an exception. So then inside the try, we're actually going to try to read the file. So I'm going to say Sudoku board, and then let's see what a good name for this variable is, right? We're going to use, and I'll actually finish up the renaming after I finish up this line. I will say read, so not file, we need file, and we need that from the system IO. That's why I wasn't able to recognize it. So read all lines, method, which we're familiar with, and we're going to pass in the file name. So now this is going to read, let me show you what it's gonna do. It's going to read all the lines from the file, and this is going to be an array, this is going to be an array, this is going to be an array. And what I mean by that is that this whole like row is going to be within an array. This is going to be within an array. This is going to be within an array, and so on and so forth. All these lines, so the rows we're going to call them, right? They're going to be within an array. But that array will only have one element, and each element is going to be this entire string. So what we need to do is we need to read each line, then we need to break that line down, and then pop the elements inside of the 2D array that we have initialized. So you'll see how we're going to do it. Let's go back here, and I'm going to say Sudoku board, and we can basically name this Sudoku board lines, because it is essentially the lines that we're getting from the Sudoku board. And then we're going to say int row, just gonna initialize the variable here. So int row, for each, I'm going to say bar Sudoku board line, Sudoku board line in Sudoku board lines. So we're iterating through these lines, right, that I showed you a few seconds ago. So now that we have access to each line, we're going to say, okay, well, I know that it's going to be an array of lines, but we need to break each line down so that we can get the elements. So I'm going to say string Sudoku board line elements, right? And then I'm going to say Sudoku board line split. I'm going to use the split pre-written method. I'm going to say split it by this, right? And then remember the link commands. We're going to say skip 1, and we're going to say take 9. I'll explain this to you in a second, and then we're actually going to convert that back into an array. So, and this should be an array. So let me explain to you why we're doing skip and take. Essentially, if we take this line, I'll actually copy this and bring it here. So if we do a split on this string, what we're going to get back is this. We're going to get back an empty, then we're going to get back, 9, and then, the empty spots. So we're going to get these guys, and then afterwards we're going to get 2, and then 3, and then 7, and let me see if I got it right, 2, 3, 7, and then 6, and then we're going to get 8. So 2, 3, 7, 6, 8, and then an empty one as well. And then at the end, we're going to get this guy again. So how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So why? Why did we get 11 back? Well, the reason is because when we split on this, it basically says, okay, well, I'm going to split the string based on this delimiter. When it splits the string on that delimiter, it starts the split here, so there is a string on the left side, which is just an empty string, but it is being split between this and anything that's on the left side. And there's nothing on the left side, so it just says, okay, well, there was nothing on the left side. And that's what it is. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's saying, okay, there's none on the left side, and then there's what's on the right side. Does the same thing all the way to the right, and then for the right, it says, okay, well, I'm going to split it everything between your right or left side and everything on your right side. There's nothing on your right side, so that's why I'm basically giving you this empty string. Now, we are going to say split and then skip 1. So we're going to skip this guy, and then we're going to take only 9. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then there's going to be this one, which we're going to ignore. And that's essentially it. That's why we're doing skip and take, and we're using link on that. So moving forward now, we have the elements of the line. Now we're going to say int column equals 0, And then we're going to say for each. I'm going to say var Sudoku board line element in Sudoku board line elements. So we're going through each element in the line. I'm going to say Sudoku board. So Sudoku, can't spell Sudoku, Sudoku board. And this is the two-dimensional array that we have declared. We're going to say row and column, so these variables right here. And then we're going to say Sudoku board line element, Sudoku board line element. And we're going to say if that element is an empty spot, then include a 0 in there. Otherwise, convert to int 16 in this case. We don't need anything bigger than that. Sudoku board line element. So then in here, we're going to say increase the column so we can go to the next column. And at the end here, increase the row so we can go to the next row. And essentially, that's it. We have it ready. Now let me actually go over the code so that it's clear for you. If you already understood what it's doing, then you can skip ahead. But if you haven't, I'm going to go over the code just so you are sure what it's doing. So you know that we're going per, let me open up the file real quick. And close that up. So basically here we're saying grab all of it, right? So each line is going to be in an array and it's going to be one string within an array. Then we're saying go through each and every line. So we're going to start from here, go to here, go to here, and so on and so forth all the way to the end. For each line, we're going to break the line based on these delimiters, right? So these symbols. And then we're going to only take these guys, so the elements within them. And once we have all of the elements, then we're going to say, okay, now we're going to go through each element and we're going to pop them into our two-dimensional array. So how do we do that? So you see row and column, right? Every time we go through each line, so whenever we're on this row, row is 0. So it starts from this. Now for that row, let's just do one example for this row, right? So that row, once you're on this, the first line, row is 0. When you go here, the column then, right within that, the second loop, says the column is 0, starts from that, and goes through each element. And then once you get to the second element, right, the first element will obviously be 0, so the first one will be 0 and 0, because row will be 0 and column will be 0. So that will basically be this guy. And then you will go to the next one. So it's a column plus plus, that'll go to the next one. But the row is still 0. So we are basically going through each column in that row and popping the numbers in all the way until we get to the end. Then once this loop is over, it goes all the way up and increments. Well, increments the row here, goes all the way here, gets the second line. And for that line now, we say, okay, well now take the contents of this line, and you already know that we, are on row 1, which, it starts from 0, right? So we're on the second row, really. And so when it gets down to here, now we're popping the elements for the second row. And so it does that. And all the way to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. And that's how it does the filling up of the two-dimensional array from the file. It's very simple. And this is now complete. So we can now use this class to be able to read from a file name into our Sudoku board. And if anything happens, we can handle that in an exception right here. So that's it.